actually make a time adjustment on this one because of the delays. The amazing part about this is that you end up learning all types of lessons, and as I was talking with my wife on the way up, we were talking about the concept of the Lord's delays, not necessarily denials, or the Lord making adjustments to what it is that you expected versus what you wanted to happen. You desired for something like this to happen, you desired for A, B, C, D, and E to happen, but then the Lord decides, you know, A and B can happen, but I'm going to shift something at C. I'm going to throw something in there that you weren't ready for. I'm going to delay something. I'm going to deny something. I'm going to make adjustments because you have a purpose in your life. You wanted certain things to happen a certain way, but I'm making adjustments because I need things to happen in a specific way for your purpose to come to pass. So it actually ended up falling in line. A lot of things that happened this week ended up confirming this specific word, and we're going to read this word and actually get ready to jump right into everything that the Lord has. We're coming from Hosea chapter 3. Hosea chapter 3, this is actually a book that isn't read too much. It's not one of the most famous books, but it is of a prophet. So Hosea chapter 3, verses 1 through 3, and the scripture reads, "Then the Lord said to me, go again, love a woman who is loved by a lover and is committing adultery. Just like the love of the Lord for the children of Israel, who looked to other gods and loved the raisin cakes of the pagans. So I bought her for myself for 15 shekels of silver and 1.5 homers of barley. And I said to her, you shall stay with me many days. You shall not play the harlot, nor shall you have a man. So too will I be towards you." And I'll say that again. I said to her, you shall stay with me many days. In other words, Hosea bought her back. What I want to talk about today is you're cheating on me. You're cheating on me. When some people saw the topic for this week, I'm sure it was kind of interesting to say, what are we talking about? When it comes to, it says just simply, you're cheating on me. When we talk about Hosea, we talk about his wife Gomer. We're talking about adultery here. We're seeing what's happening here. But to go right into a discussion, one thing that happened over the course of this week and the past couple of weeks, one famous superstar named Kanye West. Kanye West, he's been making headlines in the church as of late, and specifically he's been making news in the circles because of his number of appearances in church services. Like, I mean, he's just all of a sudden popping up, and he's at this church, this conference, that conference. And it's quite surprising because many people are like, okay, Kanye West, who is a worldly rapper, known for what he says, known for even calling himself Jesus, known for really glorifying himself, is all of a sudden you're in the church now and you're leading worship, you're bringing forth choirs, you're bringing folks together to worship the Lord. Is quite interesting. So his latest endeavors have included the utilization of gospel music and shifting his image to that of engagement with spiritual songs, which has been very interesting. The reaction from the church has been mixed, to say the least. To say the very least. It's been a mixture. So the negative sides brings kind of a level of judgment where they say, okay, a worldly rapper should not be coming into the church just to sing, or to lead worship or to do anything. And there are a lot of things where, spiritual side where they say, listen, okay, he's worldly, he's bringing in worldly influences, he's bringing in this, he's bringing in that. Matter of fact, at one church, not only did he show up, but all types of superstars showed up, rappers and actors and all of that. So he's bringing a following of people that wouldn't necessarily have set foot in the church, but from a negative perspective, they see it as he's a secular rapper. He shouldn't be allowed to perform. He shouldn't be allowed to perform specifically so easily. It's almost as if, hey, I want to come to your church, and we're just like, okay, come on. We're excited about that. Okay, come on. So that's the negative side. The positive side says that he is using his gift to bring awareness to worship, and his heart is in the right place. Okay? So if I gave you the floor, it'd be interesting to see what your thoughts would be. It'd be interesting to see what social media would say. It'd be interesting to see, if we had just one major discussion, we had a forum to say, what do you guys think about Kanye West coming into the church? And I mean, literally just 2 weeks ago, he's doing his thing, and all of a sudden, he's blowing up in the church. What do you think about that? I'm sure, as mixed as the reactions have been on social media, it'd probably be a mixed set of reactions, even in that kind of discussion. So I'll tell you this. to give wisdom in how you handle this, because this is why also when it comes to what the scriptures say, what Paul told Timothy when he talks about those of you that desire to have the office of a bishop, the office of a deacon, all of these offices, ministry, whatever your office that you desire to have is, one of them is not a novice. Not a novice, because you can get tripped up by the devil. And so what ends up happening is that if you jump into something, you jump into the fray, and you're a novice at this, you've never seen anything like this before, you're going to make the wrong judgment. You're going to make the wrong judgment, and you're going to cast down the wrong thing, you're going to call it something that is not, you're going to say this, you're going to say that, you're going to end up offending everybody, and you're going to end up losing your members, you're going to end up losing everything, you're just going to end up, you're going to end. Okay? So that's because you haven't seen the cycle before. However, if there's anything through this, the basic foundation, anytime that you don't know what to say about a situation, such as Kanye West coming into the church and it's looking good because one church said they got, 140, 150 people saved that same day that Kanye came, can you argue with those results? It's kind of like, oh my goodness, what? Hold on now. Okay, at first, on the one hand, you're like, oh man, this is a worldly person coming into the church. On the other hand, that's 150 souls that just got saved that wouldn't have gotten saved if he wasn't there. That's real talk. So anytime that you don't know how to judge something, go to Acts chapter 5. Acts chapter 5 gives you an interesting discourse where the Pharisees were looking at Peter, they were looking at John, they were looking at the apostles, and they said, you know what, the Pharisees were sitting there saying, okay, this isn't of God, this can't be of God, this cannot be of God, because guess what, the Messiah isn't coming yet, Jesus is not the Messiah, I don't know what you guys are preaching, all I know is that you need to quit preaching in this name, this Jesus, that you're calling the Messiah, and then when he resurrected, no, you cannot claim that this resurrection was real. This is what the Pharisees of the time were saying. But then one named Gamaliel, a very wise man named Gamaliel in Acts chapter 5, he is very respected, he's older. As a matter of fact, Paul even claims him as, one of the ones that influenced him to become everything that he became. So Gamaliel taught him in the ways of being a Pharisee, and Gamaliel stands up and says, listen, brethren, I need to tell you something. Anytime that you see a movement, I need you to judge it properly. There was Theudas, who was one that had about a couple hundred people follow him. He fell off. There was another guy that came up with the movement, and he fell off. The point is that anytime that you see a movement, you don't know what it is. You need to just let it work and see what the results are going to be. So what Gamaliel ended up saying is he said, and now I say to you, keep away from these men and let them alone. For if this plan is this work, is the work of men, it will come to nothing. However, if it is of God, you cannot overthrow it, lest you be found fighting against God. Now, I personally don't want to fight against God. All I know is that this is a heart issue. Just like when Jesse was lining up his sons before the prophet Samuel, and for 7 sons, every son, prophet Samuel was like, man, this guy looks good. I'm going to anoint him king. God said, no, because I'm looking at the heart and not looking at the stature. The stature is what Samuel was looking at. The stature is what Jesse was looking at. But there's a guy that was way off, just raising sheep, and he ended up being the next king, that being King David. So in that same vein, how can we judge this properly if we are sitting here saying, just because he came from the world, you don't know what God's going to use? So it's in that place that I would say, listen, y'all, if it is of men, it will come to nothing. But if it's of God, let's make sure we're not fighting against God by putting our mouth on something too soon. Because when somebody gets saved, when somebody gets delivered, when somebody gets healed, when somebody gets convicted by the Holy Spirit, they're going to start doing stuff, and you're not going to be. Think about when you got saved. Think about where you were when you got delivered. Think about where you were when you got healed. All of a sudden you started doing stuff, and your family's like, what are you doing? What's happening? What's happening here? Why are you going to church so much? Why are you doing this? Why are you preaching? Well, guess what? Because there was a change in you. So in that same vein, you don't know if Kanye changed. Could it be? I mean, he's releasing an album that says Jesus is king. Isn't that what we're saying? Now, could he have a false heart? He could. But the Lord even uses that too, doesn't he? We've seen that in the scriptures. So since this endeavor, hundreds of people have received Christ, many people have come back to church, and there's a wave of a new generation that seems, at least right now, to be excited about worshiping God. I don't have a problem with that. And so I'm having trouble with that. And that's what's really, those that are legalistic, pharisaical, those that really just want to say, okay, line upon line, precept on precept, that's really what the issue is that they're having trouble with this. It'd be one thing if I'm coming up in the church and I'm telling you, hey, listen, go leave the church, go do what you want to do, don't worship Jesus. Okay, that's another issue. That's a whole other issue. But now he's actually leading worship and actually bringing people into the church that otherwise wouldn't be there, and people are actually getting saved. I'm having trouble with that. All right? So I believe we should be excited about the results and continue in prayer for Mr. West, right? Let's stop putting our mouth on him, right? And hope that his heart is genuine, and just as we should with this is just as we should do with anyone, especially those of major influence, because I can see a wave of people of major influence coming into the church getting saved, but then we're going to judge them because we used to listen to their old stuff. I mean, what if it's T.I.? What if it's, you know what I mean? What if it's our favorite rappers from way back when? What if it's anybody? And then they're coming to us looking for salvation, but because of what we thought they used to be, okay, the Lord is changing them, and now we want to judge them. So that said, here is the real question that's at hand for the church. This is the real question. The real question of the hour is about, has nothing to do with Mr. West himself. The real question is, why did it take him showing up to excite people to go back to church in the first place? That's the real question. So I believe this is the question that the Lord will ask us today, and we need to ponder that answer. So simply put, the Lord allows Mr. West to come into the church, excite this group, excite that group, excite this group, get people saved, get this happening, get this going. But why did it take that in the first place? The title of this teaching is, You're Cheating on Me. Okay? So we're going to talk about relationships for a second, and trust me, it's going to all come back full circle within the time. All right? So so let's talk about relationships for a minute. And I know that's a favorite subject in the church. My wife and I were just having a talk yesterday about the lack of talking when it comes to relationships, marital preparation, about sex, about all of this, and how it has tripped up many Christians when they get ready to walk into marriage. They're not ready for everything marriage entails. So as a result, because we don't talk about it much, everybody starts tripping up. And trust me, it all ties together. So despite what television, movies, and social media may tell you, cheating in relationships, especially marriages, isn't as common as we'd assume. An article written by the psychologist named Dr. John Brodel, he says that among married couples, there's actually only a 6% chance that within any year, cheating is going to happen. So, despite what the movies are saying, you're cheating. Real Housewives of Atlanta and all these other places, cheater, you're going to cheat. Despite all of that, people that desire committed relationships really aren't cheating as much as we think. So, and then when it comes to the lifespan of a relationship, so we're talking about from day one all the way to the end of it, 25% chance of possible infidelity. So it's very, very low over the lifespan. So we're talking about over a 25-year relationship, a 25% chance. What in the world? So that's a lot lower than what we would expect. So, but the thing is that even as you research this and you talk about infidelity, again, we're talking about the concept of cheating, and we're going to tie it in to everything that the church is dealing with. The types of infidelity, there are actually different types to consider. The Infidelity Recovery Institute gives 7 different types of infidelity. The first one, I laughed at this because I knew that if I ever came up with this and said, there's actually this type, I knew my wife would laugh in my face. They call the first one the accidental affair. Look at my wife's face. Tells the whole story. It's like, oh, accidental. They call it the accidental affair, but what they're talking about is the concept that it is an unintended infidelity. That is, one night stand, okay, I woke up this morning faithful, but I did not intend that by the end of the night, okay, I was going to be unfaithful. That's the accidental Okay? So the next one is the avoidance affair. In other words, there are issues in the relationship, and in the midst of trying to deal with that relationship or not wanting to deal with the issues in a relationship, what you do is you go out and you go find somebody new because you don't want to deal with what's going on at home. The avoidance affair. Okay? Issues are occurring. Usually there's constant fighting at home, so somebody steps out. There's constant fighting, they don't know what to do, so they step out as a result. Okay? There's also the philanderer affair, the philanderer. This one is interesting because generally this is womanizing men. This is majority of the time this is dealing with men who are womanizing. Basically they see women as conquest, and psychologically they feel the need to conquer. So in other words, I see woman after woman after woman, everybody is a trophy. It has absolutely nothing to do with love. It's there's something wrong with me that makes me want to say, you're a trophy, you're a trophy, you're a trophy, and my goal is to be intimate with you because that is what's going on with me. There's something wrong with me to want to be able to do that, right? All right, so when these people get caught, the philanderers, it's interesting, there is no guilt or shame felt when they're caught. There's no guilt. And in a normal situation, you get caught, it's like, man, I got caught and I feel bad and I want to do this and all this. There's no guilt because they are insecure, they are highly manipulative, and they are habitual liars. These types are habitual liars. In other words, they just can't stop lying. They don't know why, they don't understand it. They've never done thorough introspection of themselves to say, why do I lie, oh Lord? No, they just do it because they don't want to get caught and they think that they can manipulate every system and nobody sees the fact that they are liars. It's almost unfortunate, right? So psychologically, there's something wrong. Some actually hate women, honestly. Okay, you see them out there pimping and playing and all this. Some of them actually hate women, according to this study. They hate women and they don't see them as equals and use sex as a definition of their masculinity. So in other words, the more I get, the more manly I am. Rather than to say, the more years I'm with my wife, the more manly I am. It's a flipped mindset. It's a completely flipped mindset, okay? So that's the philanderer one. The entitlement affair, you guys might already be able to see where this one is going as far as entitlement. Entitlement usually happens among celebrities, rich people, people that have influence, they have some kind of power, they have prestige, they have resources, and with all of that comes a great deal of narcissism. I have a great deal of narcissism because I have put it in my mind that I deserve to be able to do what it is that I want to do. And that's where that comes from. So when you have this entitlement mindset, matter of fact, you know, the older people actually assign this to the entire millennial generation to say they're entitled. So from an entitlement mindset, you say, I deserve this, so I should be able to have it. So from an affair perspective, when you're cheating and all of that, you have all of these resources because you're say the President of the United States, or you're a senator, or you are a mayor, or whoever you are, whatever position that you are in, you feel like you deserve to be able to cheat on your wife, but the truth of the matter is that you have an entitlement mindset. And that ends up being the issue. So there's also what they call a split self affair, a split self affair. This one blew my mind because it's talking about where there's one person on the outside but another person on the inside. And there's a split self affair. This occurs when the cheater falls in love with the person that they have an affection with. So what ends up happening is that they have a conflict on the inside, and they have to choose between a stable home or a new emotional adventure, a new emotional connection. So in other words, there's stable home, but because I fell in love with the issue, now I have a split. Now I have to feel like, okay, am I going to invest over here, or am I going to give it up and invest over here? So now you have a split situation. This is most often what happens in various situations, in the normal situations where you've entertained something for so long that you fall in love with that thing and now you don't know which one you want. So that ends up happening. Matter of fact, that same article actually said it happens in churches too. So in churches, even as you're praying for people, pray against this split mindset. No, I'm not falling in love with something that is not mine. I'm going back home to the stable environment to make sure that we stay together. So look at this. It happens when a person feels alive. You've heard that before. I feel alive when I'm with this person. I feel alive. There's an electricity. There's a connection. So that's because you've been with somebody for 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, and the things of life, having children and all of that have weighed on you. And then a couple of things have happened, and you're like, oh my goodness, there's so much going on. But then this one person that you have absolutely no connection with makes you feel alive because they're paying attention to those areas that you think that are dried up. But the amazing part about it is that that person is only speaking to that area. But you're discounting every other investment that's associated with the stable home. So this is where situations occur out of midlife crisis. The first thing a lot of us think about when we think of midlife crisis is old dudes that are balding and they're riding. They've got all this money and they're riding in the red sports car. And they've got the busty young girl in the passenger seat that's just doing 90 down the highway and just doing what it is they want to do. This is that kind of affair, right? And so it's an affair and also it's a midlife crisis, or it's an affair to come out either as unhappy with the relationship, and they even throw this in here, to come out as homosexual. So you're coming out some way. You're either coming out unhappy or you're coming out as homosexual. So you're using this as the excuse to go and do something else, to be something that you think you are. We're dealing with some stuff today. All right, so the foundational issue is that the person is split on the inside and doesn't know how to process their emotions. If they're depressed at home, okay, they don't know how to process that. They had an issue at home, they don't know how to process that. They feel some kind of other way inside. They don't feel like they're a man. They don't feel like they're a woman. They have a split situation going on the inside. But they're trying to keep things going at home. The next one is the exit affair. The exit affair. This is performed by a person who is a conflict avoider. In other words, issues come up. I don't want to deal with it. I'm out. I don't want to deal with this. This is too much for me. Or honestly, let's be real about it. It's not too much for you. You're just too immature to deal with it. You don't want to deal. You don't want to take responsibility for what's going on in your life, right? So it's performed by a person who is a conflict avoider. They just want out of the relationship due to underlying tensions that build up over time. Every relationship has tensions that build up. That's just the nature of relationship. Anybody that you live with, anybody that you're with over the period of time, something's going to happen. Something's going to work your nerves. Something's going to trigger some anger. Something's going to happen because humans with other humans means that there's going to be conflict. That's just going to happen, period. But maturity says we're going to deal with this conflict. We're going to deal with this issue. Or we're going to come to a resolution that we both can agree to, especially in marriage. Especially in marriage, right? So then there's, the next one is, and this is the seventh one, the sexual addiction affair. The sexual addiction affair, okay? So some are addicted to sex and unhealthy sexual behaviors, and the result is the affair happens out of mental illness or sexual trauma that occurred in previous situations. So in other words, something has occurred when you were a child, or something happened in a previous relationship where something happened to you, and as a result, you now have a mental illness that says, you know what, I'm addicted to sex, I'm addicted to this, I'm addicted to pornography, I'm addicted to all of this stuff, to where you cannot stay faithful because you have a mental illness. You're able to walk the walk and look like you're good, you're able to walk the walk and look like everything's fine, but the truth of the matter is you have a mental illness that ends up making the manifestation of being unstable and unfaithful. So additionally, as we're talking about all of this, because keep in mind we're going to tie all of this back to the Lord and tie all of this back to what we introduced. There are emotional affairs. The article was saying that women fall into this most often when it comes to the long-term studies. There's been no sexual contact, but the emotional the emotional connections. They develop, so in other words, you're not necessarily falling into anything physical, but you're not exactly pushing away somebody, going to lunch with somebody. So there's an emotional thing going on there, right? All right, so then also there's financial infidelity that they brought up, which is that you're spending something and not telling your spouse, or you're spending something, not telling your partner, and financial decisions against the relationship and the dishonesty associated with doing so. In other words, I'm saying one thing about our money, but then I'm doing something else behind your back. That's financial affairs that they define. So amazingly, with all these different types, we understand that from a personal perspective, there is something that we have to make sure that we deal with, and that is dealing with ourselves, because at the end of the day, no matter what kind of affair you fell into, guess whose responsibility it is that you fell into it? It's me. You gotta look in the mirror. You gotta look in the mirror. That at the end of the day, whatever you fell into, that it's on me. It's on me to deal with whatever I fell into, all right? So causes of infidelity. So family attorney Henry Gornbein, he wrote some of the most common causes of cheating, and the number one cause, as we can imagine, is the internet. The internet in general. The internet in general, because now it's easier than ever to find a way to cheat just because of the internet. It's almost unfortunate that technology has been such a blessing, but at the same time, it's such a curse for true relationships, right? And then the next one in his experience is running away from problems. In other words, you have a situation where you're making excuses for issues rather than dealing with them, and doing that opens the door for someone else to be the savior for your partner. In other words, I'm not dealing with the situation at home so somebody can come in and swoop in and bat their eyes, and next thing you know, I'm open to that person because I'm not dealing with what's going on. Okay? And the next thing, of course, was pornography. They say not just limited to men, but also women, that addictions and behaviors associated with this are a significant factor to the breakdown of otherwise healthy relationships. So we're talking about, okay, you're dating, you're engaged, you're married, but in your mind, you have trash in your mind. And this is something that has to be dealt with, something that has to be prayed about, something that has to be discussed, something that has to be dealt with, because you do not want to bring the poison into your relationship. All right? And then lastly, Facebook and social media. Oh man, there was a song that got famous not too long ago, just a couple years back, Down in the DMs. And I mean, that song, if you've never heard this, you probably heard the song, but if you haven't seen the video is very, very much a representation of what happens in real life, where there's a dude, and I've quoted this before, but there's a dude that's standing at the altar with his woman, getting ready to take the vows and all of that, and then his phone blings or what have you, and he's pulling out the phone, and it's another lady in his DMs as he's getting ready to take vows. And I said, as much as this is supposed to be entertaining, it's reality. That this is something that if you're entertaining what's going on social media to that personal of a perspective, guess what? You're in trouble. You're in trouble, right? So Facebook apparently is a contributing factor to about 1/3 of breakups and divorces. 1/3. So in other words, this guy who's a family attorney sees divorces, sees breakups, sees situations with children and all that you're talking about, his case file could be stacked with 100 different cases. You're telling me that 33 of those cases is going to be related to social media. That's difficult to swallow, right? So there is much to avoid and deal with as we seek to have healthy and honorable relationships with our spouses and potential spouses. But imagine for a moment, so now let's flip it. We've talked about the offender. What about the offendee? The person that got offended, right, in this process, okay? So imagine for a moment what it feels like to be the betrayed spouse. Hurt. Hurt doesn't even describe. Depends on your level of love, right? It kind of depends on, okay, did you love them? Or were you in love with them? Or were you just dealing with them, right? It kind of depends. And some folks might be like, well, good riddance. I'm glad you did something. I was looking for a reason to leave anyway, right? But some people, the hurt is so deep and it's so painful that it's hard to process, right? So imagine the hurt, imagine the pain, imagine all of that when it comes to being portrayed in this way. The shame, right? The shame that you feel, and it depends honestly on how public all of this is, right? If you imagine, I won't mention the name, I don't want to rehash that, but there was a politician not too long ago that, got caught up in a sexting scandal and all of that, and one of the things in the midst of it, as everybody was focused in on that politician and reporting this and reporting that and spreading it all over and all this and everything that's happening, I kept thinking about his wife. What does this feel like? It's one thing to find out about it and you're dealing with that at home and you can go run to your family or what have you. It's another thing when the entire world knows about it, and the dude is a meme, and the situation is funny to so many people, and every reminder of it can only come from a place of hurt and ultimately feelings of shame, that where you almost regret that you chose to marry that person. You can't imagine, right? Unless you've been through it, you can barely imagine. Regret for going this far, for getting married, for doing this connection, for even having this situation, for being in this situation in the first place, where you start asking questions of yourself, did I do enough? Did I do this? Did I do that? And then you end up having to realize at the end of the day that person made their own decisions. Okay? It's like, okay, everything contributes to everything and all of that, that's sure, fine, but that person made the final decision. All right? So those of you who have been cheated on before, you know the feelings. Those of you who have been left to deal with the pile of unresolved issues know what it's like to process the hurt and the pain of betrayal in the most intimate of ways. You guys know what that's like. And those even watching, you guys know what that's like. It hurts. It's horrible. It's something that you can't even fathom about how to process, and it's hard to see the light of day beyond the situation. So all of that said, I believe this is how God feels. I'm going all the way back to the top of this. I believe this is how God feels. So why would I say that in the midst of everything that we just talked about? We just talked about relationships, we talked about cheating, and we're talking about the concept of you're cheating on me, right? Nothing against Mr. West whatsoever, nothing against him. And his journey to knowing Christ, nothing against him whatsoever. Matter of fact, I'm excited about it. I pray that amazing things happen. Nothing against the churches that have hosted him. Nothing against the conferences. Nothing against the songs. Nothing against anything that has happened when it comes to hosting Mr. West and facilitating the glory that has happened through this man, right? Nothing against that. And nothing against the waves of people who flock to his presence to sing along with him and singing praises to our God. Nothing against anybody. Nothing against all of that. I just have a question. And I believe this is the question of the Lord. The question is simply this. Why was I the Lord? Why was I not enough for you? Why, if you can see this from a betrayed spouse perspective, why was I not enough for you? Why did it take him for you to get excited about me again? What? I was here the whole time. I've been waiting on you to come home while you were out doing what you wanted to do. I was here waiting. I was here willing to be whatever you needed me to be. I was here to supply everything that you needed, to give you everything that you wanted, to be the very reason that you have a purpose in the earth. Why did it take Kanye West for you to get excited again? Is the Lord's question, I believe, in this hour. So no judgment on Mr. West himself. I believe to the church, why is it taking him to get you excited again? Is that not the voice of the spouse that has been cheating on? Right? That's how God feels when we need more than him and what he provides to get excited about being with him. And that's what the book of Hosea is about from beginning to end. From beginning to end, all of the chapters, that's essentially the Lord's cry, is why does it take the world's way to get you excited about me? So, Hosea himself, he was a prophet that lived in Israel. He prophesied for about 60 years. Okay? He prophesied for about 60 years. He's the author of the book of Hosea. But the interesting part, he was commanded to marry a woman that was a known prostitute. But why? Why would a prophet be commanded to connect with a prostitute? They had 3 kids together. They lived together and all that. But after those kids happened, she said, you know what? I'm out and I'm going back to what I used to do. So now as a result, he's married to her, he's tripping, he doesn't know what to do, how to handle all this, but what he does is ultimately he goes back to buy her to bring her back home. So just imagine the feelings of, okay, you've had 3 kids with this person, and now she's back out doing what she does. Okay? So Hosea truly loved Gomer. The name of his wife was Gomer. Hosea truly loved Gomer, and each time she strayed out into the streets, he would go and get her and bring her home. Specifically, he would go buy her time. Just like the men who came to purchase her services. So just like the dudes. So another, oh my goodness, I didn't even catch this revelation in the midst of my studies. But imagine this for just a second. There's a long line of dudes waiting to get with Gomer, and you're one in line. Waiting your turn. Knowing that the dudes in front of you and the dudes behind you are going to have a turn with your wife, bro. But this is what he's dealing with. Just waiting in line. Waiting in line. Long line of dudes. Specifically, he would go buy her time just like the men that came to purchase her services. So Hosea's entire life was used as a living example of how God feels about Israel. How God feels about his people. So he felt just like the faithful husband, that with a cheating wife trying to win her back. So this book was a set of warnings and judgments, and ultimately it was a plea for his people to come back home to a person that actually loves them. Because keep in mind, this is the amazing part about it. No matter how Gomer felt about going back to that lifestyle and getting into that lifestyle, staying in that lifestyle, none of the dudes that bought her loved her. I don't care what you say. None of the dudes that bought her loved her. Man, all I know is if you're a husband that is raising the kids by himself, keep that in mind. He is a single dad now. May as well be, because his wife is out in the streets, right? So he's a single dad raising the kids, and in his heart, he turns around and somehow says, you know what? Because I love her so much, I'm going out to buy her. I still want her. I still want to be married to her. I still want to raise children with her. I still want her to have the best. I still want her to be with me. That is an insane level of love. Right? So watch this. The book is a set of warnings and judgments with a plea for repentance and a change of heart. So why would God use Hosea in this way? Simple. To win his people back. That's why God would use Hosea and use his entire life, as depressing as it looked. He used his entire life to do the same thing, which is win his people back. He wants to win his people back. So while it's exciting to see someone as famous as Kanye West come into the church, it's awesome. And I'm looking forward to more famous people. I'm looking for everybody to come into the church. Excited about it. It's exciting to see him sing songs of the Lord. It's exciting to see him drop an album named Jesus is King. It's awesome to see all of that. But I believe the Lord is asking us, why does it require him for you to come in and show love to the Lord? And specifically speaking of those who have strayed away. Specifically speaking of those who said, you know what, I'm not going to church anymore. Specifically speaking of those, you know what, I'm done with church, I'm done with ministry, I'm done with this, I'm done with that. It's not exciting anymore, so you go and go do your own thing, and now all of a sudden you're back in the church because Kanye showed up? Oh, really? I believe that that's the Lord's heart. So why does it require him for us to get excited about loving the Lord? We have to pose the question about what is idolatry. What is idolatry? So when you're dealing with idolatry, that means there's something that's ahead of the Lord. Something that you follow more than you follow the Lord. Idolatry, in its simplest definition, is the practice of putting other things, people, or gods before the Lord and allowing their influence to turn you away from your calling to serve Jehovah. Okay? So, a couple of examples. Solomon's idol was women. Solomon had, it's one thing that, some people might think about his wisdom, some people might think about his money, some people might think about this, might think about that. But the truth of the matter is, his idol was women, because he allowed the women to change his heart and to build various buildings to their idols on Jehovah's land. So he is known to be the wisest and richest king that ever lived, yet he strayed and lost his passion for the Lord. Demas, Most people don't know Demas. Demas, he's actually noted in multiple books. Demas was an excellent saint. He was working for the Lord with those like Mark and Luke, according to Philemon 1:24. You'll see his name there. He was also a spiritual son of the Apostle Paul. That's according to Colossians 4:14. He was with him when he was in Rome. But the interesting thing about Demas is that Demas actually betrayed Paul. See, we don't preach about it much because it's not the focus of the letters and all that. But Demas was actually a saint that was set aside, working with Mark, working with Luke, working with Paul. But he betrayed Paul at his most critical time. This is according to 2 Timothy chapter 4, verse 10, is that it says, "For Demas has forsaken me, having loved this present world, and has departed from Thessalonica." So Demas' desire was for the corruption of this present world, and he couldn't leave it as his heart was set on what the world had to offer. This is idolatry. The same thing with Lot's wife. You remember, Lot was called out of Sodom and Gomorrah. Lot was called out of Sodom and Gomorrah because, such a corrupt place, and they needed to get out of there. The Lord gave him a chance to get out of there, get your wife, get your 2 daughters, and get on out of there. Well, as he's making tracks, his wife turns and looks at Sodom and Gomorrah at the destruction because in her heart, she still wanted to be there. Turned into a pillar of salt. So that's idolatry. This is not the time, at the end of the day, this is not the time to have anything in your heart that keeps you from the Lord. So I believe that the Lord is asking all of us a simple question. We talked about cheating, we talked about those feelings, we talked about all of that. I believe the simple question is simply this: am I enough? Am I enough? Do you love me? Or will you only follow me because someone else makes it cool to do so? Do you all have a calling on your lives? This is what it comes down to. Every last one of you in here, last one of you online, every last one of us, you have a calling on your lives. But the thing you can't do in the midst of having that calling on your lives is putting anything before the Lord who gave you the calling in the first place. We can't do that. So at some point, and this is one thing we have to admit, is that we've all cheated at some point. But now we're in a place where, since we know better, we know the word better, he's waiting for us with open arms to take us higher than ever before. He's waiting to take us to a place where we are operating our calling on a whole nother level, where there's nothing in this world that can take our hearts away from him, nothing that's above, nothing that's beneath, no riches, no glory, no people that can take us away from the Lord, because we know that he has called us, and in this time we're not going to be distracted by the things of the world. We appreciate Mr. West, we appreciate the churches, we appreciate everything that's happening, we appreciate it, and we hope that even more things happen. We hope more rappers come, we hope more singers come, more actors come. We want everybody to come into the kingdom, but let's not get it twisted. Don't let somebody that's famous make this cool for you, and then this time next year, you're not in church anymore. That can't be the case. That can't be the case where you're up and down, where you're here when somebody's cool, but you're gone when things are just normal. We have to be able to be consistent in that, and that is idolatry if we're following somebody other than the Lord. And so even as we prepare to close, in this we need to continue to have the mindset of, Lord, not only am I not cheating on you, but Lord, I am here and willing and waiting to be embraced by your open arms, because I'm willing and ready to take the calling that you have given me and to run with the calling, to do what it is that you have called, you have called me to do, and to become everything you have called me to be. Remove everything that's a distraction, remove everything that could get in the way, and remove everything that could hinder this walk. But Lord, I'm here, I'm willing, I'm ready, and I want to go higher in you. So in the mighty name of Jesus, as I pray for everyone, may everyone in this room, may everyone online, may everyone that's connected to us operate on a higher level, operate on a higher plane, take the very things that they are called to do and run with it like never before. They won't be distracted by the glitz and the glam. They won't be distracted by the money. They won't be distracted by opportunities that the Lord didn't send. But Lord, continue to open the doors so that they can know and see and understand that this is the time to do the great things that they are called to do. And we will not be distracted by the things of the world. Lord, we love you, we honor you, we bless you, and may, as we go through this place, but never from before your presence, Lord, we say thank you for another opportunity to be in your word, another opportunity to be in your presence, and another opportunity to give you the glory.